Hey guys, MonstersReview here. The Powerpuff Girls reboot isn't officially premiering until April, but the first episode called Man Up was released onto iTunes for free and I gave it a watch. A few other episodes have been released elsewhere which I haven't seen yet, but I have seen screenshots and plot summaries of those. Nonetheless, today I'm going to give you my first impressions of the new Powerpuff Girls reboot based on my opinions of those as well as the shorts that they released. First off, I just want to say that it wasn't that bad. It wasn't anything memorable or surprisingly good, but it wasn't bad. As an independent show, it stands on its own, and it did have a few moments that made me chuckle. But compared to the original, the reboot had a lot of discrepancies. It was definitely a lot more fast-paced than the original, which really doesn't come as a surprise to me. However, I think that that's a really big problem because it doesn't give you time to take in the moment or think about what's happening. Rather, things are happening so fast, and it probably has fast pacing to make it seem more funny, but personally, I found it more annoying and distracting than funny. Also, a lot of the humor feels forced, like they're trying really hard to make you laugh. I know that this is kind of beating the dead horse here, but I'm still having trouble getting used to the new voices, and quite frankly, I don't know if I ever will. For almost 20 years, the only voices we've ever known of the Powerpuff Girls are those of E.G. Daily, Tara Strong, and Kathy Cavadini. Buttercup's new voice is especially very odd, and I'm still upset at the fact that Cartoon Network didn't talk to the original VAs. It's also really offsetting to hear some of the new voices along some of the original voices like Tom Kenny's. I'd say that the thing that I'm most disappointed about with this reboot is its art and design. The original art took inspiration from 1960s architecture and Hanna-Barbera animation, but it looks like the reboot took a lot of inspiration from modern Tumblr art and chibi characters. The art style is extremely similar to Clarence's, and I don't think it works with the Powerpuff Girls. It looks like the girls' eyes got bigger, their mouths got smaller, and their bodies shrunk as if they're trying to make the girls appear as more cute and adorable. There's also been some major animation mistakes and goofs that have already been pointed out, and the show hasn't even officially premiered yet. In a side view, which for the most part the original show stayed away from, it looks like Blossom only has one eye. Also, in the first episode, there's a dreamlike sequence where Buttercup's in a desert. Believe it or not, the desert background is actually a slightly altered version of a stock image of the Sahara Desert. It definitely seems like this show's art won't be that impressive, and it seems like they might take the easy way out on a lot of the animation. As I've seen a lot of people mention on social media, the designs of the background characters are also very unappealing. Yes, they are a bit more detailed, but that's not a good thing. The simplistic and geometric designs of the background characters was what made them background characters, and that made the Powerpuff Girls stand out in the original. Speaking of social media, that and the internet has already made an appearance in the reboot. The first episode shows them watching a video, and the short called Bubbles' Beauty Vlog but on video is about Bubbles hosting what appears to be a parody of a YouTube makeup advice video. There's a small part at the end of that short that I can't really explain, I have to show it to you.
Why, thank you, Bubbles. I'm ready for the runway. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Did I say that right?
I'm cringing so hard. The presence of social media and the internet definitely feels forced, and one of the things that made the original Powerpuff Girls so great was that it avoided directly implementing era-defining electronics or trends so that its morals and stories could be relevant today or any time in the future. And just because it has girls in it doesn't mean that it has to have some sort of connection to feminism. Same with the new Ghostbusters reboot that's coming out. It's a reboot in 2016 that has female protagonists, but why does that mean that it all of a sudden has to do with feminism? You can definitely tell that this has a lot of feminist undertones, with the theme song having to do with girl power, the first episode's villain being a man boy who eats a lot of meat and has muscles and tries to make Townsville more manly, and tries transforming it into Mansville, so on and so forth. I have absolutely no problem with feminism, unless it's third wave SJW radical feminism, but that's not what this show's about. The original Powerpuff Girls wasn't necessarily that girly, which is probably why a lot of guys liked it, and instead of gender issues, it was more about three little girls fighting crime while trying to balance a normal life and assimilate with their peers. I feel like this show is lacking a lot of that substance, and the focus on making the girls look more cutesy and having them embrace a lot of their girliness might drive away a lot of potential male viewers. Lastly, I don't think the new theme song's that bad, but it doesn't explain their situation at all. The original opening sequence showed how the Powerpuff Girls were born and explained why they do what they do. The new theme song doesn't show that sequence, so how are today's kids that haven't seen the original supposed to know the backstory? If they're not going to include that sequence in the reboot, perhaps Cartoon Network should air the original then. I also don't like how they set up each episode. The original typically took 30 seconds or so to establish the atmosphere or situation of each episode, but in the reboot, it seems like the narrator is only taking a few seconds to briefly explain the location they're in, and then it instantly cuts to the girls. Here, let me compare the opening of a random episode from the original to this episode.
The city of Townsville is under renovation, but that doesn't hinder the daily life of its citizens, no sir. Yes, the hustle and bustle of life goes on as usual. Even the evil Mojo Jojo maintains his daily routine of evil doing. But thankfully, the Powerpuff Girls also stay right on schedule and on Mojo's trail. Go, girls, go!
Hey there, groovy people. Today is the Townsville Renaissance Fair. It's all peace and love and...
Ugh, I hate this place. Why did you guys drag me to...
Like I said before, the pacing is way too fast, and I think it could have done a better job of establishing the scene and explaining the situation. I also wasn't that pleased with the credit sequence, and they somehow also managed to include some live action at the end of it. So like I said at the beginning, the show itself isn't that bad, but there's a lot of discrepancies that make it different in comparison to the original show. I've seen so many people say, stop comparing it to the original, but that's an invalid argument because you can't expect someone not to compare it if it's a remake of a 20-year-old original and very developed idea. For those of you that don't want to watch it on iTunes, it premieres on Cartoon Network on April 4th, and after 10 or so episodes come out, I'll post another review. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like below and give me your thoughts on the Powerpuff Girls reboot in the comments. Make sure to check out my social media and Patreon, which are in the description. As always, I'm MonstersReview, thanks for watching and have a spectacular day.